If the road were easy, everyone would take it. We don't shy away from challenges. We dive in. And now, live from an undisclosed location in FEMA Region 10, it's your host, Joshua Michael.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Joshua Michael, Non-Compliant America. Thank you very much for joining me today. So we had the big governor's debate a few days ago. Big governor's debate. All the usual suspects showed up, and it was interesting. It was interesting. I was very disappointed. I didn't even watch the whole thing because you learn very quickly that it wasn't even a debate. I don't know why everybody's not asking for their money back, because it was not a debate. And, part of this whole cycle in this process of, getting a governor elected that's a Republican has been quite interesting. And I spoke about it last week, and it still even rings true today in the fact that I'm having so many conversations with people, and the argument is essentially becoming the same. It's money over principles. Money over principles. And what do I mean by that? Is that everybody's rallying around, Christine Drazan and Dudley, and some people Deal for that matter, and they're ignoring the very fundamental reason of why we're here even voting on them. They're ignoring it completely. And then the conversation becomes, well, Danielle Bethel, she doesn't have enough money raised that she would not be able to win. Okay. So I hear what you're saying. So what you're saying is that you're willing to sacrifice integrity, sacrifice your moral compass, sacrifice everything that you stand for money. And the entire conversation becomes about money. And so it all goes out the window. And then now everybody's going to rally around the person that raised the most money. Had nothing to do with policy. And the format of this ORP, I don't even want to call it a debate, because it wasn't even a debate. It was a forum, just like what we've seen. Same old. Let's ask some questions. You guys get to respond. Everything else. There's no fire. There's no passion. There's no energy. There's nothing. It's just a conversation. To whereas this is the moment where you take the gloves off as a candidate, and you guys need to hash out details amongst each other. We all put you in a ring to have a debate. And debate on your policies, debate on your integrity, debate on your voting record. Whether you voted for tampons in boys' bathrooms multiple times, like I think that should be addressed. Whether you voted on the paddleboard tax and you're supposed to be the no tax candidate, and you base your entire campaign on being an advocate for no tax. But it's not no tax, because you're not advocating to not pay taxes. It's kind of misleading, especially given the sense that there's a huge no tax movement of people not paying taxes at all, which I absolutely agree with. And then it's not that argument. It's like, hey, you're just not going to pay additional taxes. That's what no tax means on my signs. You guys are being tricked. You guys are being bamboozled. Bamboozled. And I have morals and integrity. And I can't stand behind liars and cheaters. And I don't think that our society should even accept any of that. I don't think we should. I don't think our society is going to win if we start sacrificing so many elements of our movement, of what being a conservative means, of what being a Republican means, all in the names just to win. Because essentially you've already lost before you even won. And so that's kind of my 2 cents on that. Sayeth it what you will. Go ahead and text me whatever nonsense that you think, but just realize like a lot of people that disagree with me are over 60 years old and they're boomers. And I think it demonstrates a huge misunderstanding with what the state of the world that we're in. And also it demonstrates how we've gotten here and how things have gotten so bad. Things have gotten so bad because these same people that I'm having a conversation with that are disagreeing with me are just regurgitating Fox News talking points to me. They've really kind of lost their way, and I feel sad for them. And it is sad. Right? And I don't expect that people to agree with me by any means. But if you're going to disagree with me, you have to actually have some type of substance and understanding of what we're even talking about. But if you can't understand what I'm talking about and you're talking about, just whatever Fox News is telling you, then you can't have a conversation and have an in-depth discussion of, what kind of things we talk about on this show. Because we're talking about the sentiment. I'm talking about what the people that do have a brain, that do think for themselves, on what they think. Because I actually respect their opinions a lot more than somebody tells me that, Trump is still doing a great job. And there's some aspects that are good. I just saw the other day, you had Joe Rogan in the Oval Office, and they were rolling out different mushroom psilocybin medications and getting it FDA approved to help people get off drugs. And apparently, it works. I don't know. I've never had a drug problem. I don't know. But if the statistics are there, we should try it. And I think that that's a good idea. That's a good plan. Because, as you know, Big Pharma has essentially taken over the entire medical system. And we're not getting any better. We're getting sicker. There's 22-year-olds getting diagnosed with cancer. Well, we know because it's the shot or COVID or the overexposure of cell phone radiation, But nobody wants to talk about that. Like, that seems to be perfectly normal. And just like everybody, we're on a train going 100 miles an hour, and everybody's looking at their phone, and they don't realize that there's no captain. There's nobody manning the train. It's going 100 miles an hour, ready to go off a cliff, and nobody's the wiser. And the people that are trying to speak to the drone bots that are embedded into their cell phones, embedded into whatever, echo chamber and, digital gulag that they're stuck in. They're like, oh, you're crazy. You're tinfoil hat. You're conspiracy. You're negative. You're negative. God wouldn't want that. You got to be positive all the time. And I understand. I am positive. I love my life. I love the things. I love being able to hear what you guys think. I love being able to have conversations. I love being able to have in-depth discussions with adults that are capable of dissenting off of their views, or at least having a perspective beyond the mainstream neocon takeover, new MAGA people. That, you guys are just as bad as the left, some of you. Just as bad as the left. So I have an ongoing bet right now that I'm going to be owed a steak dinner. We bet a steak dinner. I said within 2 years, TPUSA will be done. And we're already seeing it. We saw it in Georgia. They couldn't even fill 2/3 of their auditorium. I think it was probably 1/3 full. Empty. Erica didn't even show up. She said that there was some threat against her life, all while the vice president of the United States was there, who had Secret Service, obviously had to do their due diligence for him to be there. But Erica Kirk said that she had a threat against her life, and so she couldn't come. All while the vice president was there. So I don't know if she's got like super secret service that has more intelligence than our secret service. But yeah, all while the crowd was empty, right? Nobody was there. But it's interesting because the Secret Service came out and said, hey, we scoured everything. There was no viable threat. So we don't know what she's talking about. So that's a PR nightmare. Then she had to donate a bunch of money to some Trump PAC or Trump administration thing and get him to show up in Arizona to try to show face. Then when she comes out, it's like the Punisher of the WWE is her intro for her coming out on stage. I mean, the optics are so bad. They are so disconnected, but they're operating on a formula. And it's pretty fantastical to watch. So I just think it's interesting. It's my opinion. I talk to TPUSA people locally, and they're like, yeah, we're looking for an exit. We're trying to get out as fast as we can because we see that it's a sinking ship. It's not working. TPUSA died when they killed Charlie. And by they, I mean it was not Tyler Robinson up on a balcony with a 308 or 30-06 or whatever they say that he had. That's not the case. Even that case is falling apart too. Turns out that the shells that they found didn't match the gun. So they can't use it. And so I don't like getting into the weeds of this nonsense because I do think it's but it's interesting. It's interesting to watch how this stuff folds out and rolls out. But the next thing that I want to talk about, which I feel is interesting, because if you look around what's going on globally, if you look at around what countries are doing and how kind of erratic they're behaving, the erratic behavior, everything seems to be very erratic and like very rushed. And everybody's in a hurry, whether it's to soak up all the gold. Everybody's calling their gold, getting the silver. China restricts silver exports. No more silver exports for anybody. And everybody's calling in all their gold, and the banking things going on, and what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz is that's opening the doors to get off the petrodollar, which is the U.S.-backed currency, which requires these oil tankers and transfer of money to be done in the U.S. dollar. That's only accelerating the disconnect from that, which is interesting. Surprisingly, when they set up BRICS, it was specific for these moments for countries to still operate and trade with certain commodities like oil without the U.S. dollar. So it's devaluing the U.S. dollar exponentially, and it's only solidifying the value of getting off of that U.S. dollar. And so that's interesting because what's happening in the world is I think that we're separating into factions, which I think we're going back to more nation states, to where the United States is no longer the superpower of the world. And a lot of the superpower, a lot of that power has been the soft power approach, to where when we dropped those nukes initially, that shocked the entire world and made us a superpower. People are like, oh crap, those guys are very serious. That's very dangerous. They have nukes. But I think that facade is starting to be eroded by a lot of the things that the Trump administration is doing. But even Trump is acting erratic in regards to his decision. One day he's for Iran, the next day he's not. One day we got a peace deal, then Iran says we don't have a peace deal. I don't know what he's talking about. And so we're getting this misinformation that's just diluting the water so much that we don't even know what is going on. All we do know, and the things that are tangible within our life, is that gas prices are going up, inflation is going up, and there's a lot of things happening to the wealth of individuals within the United States. And so no matter how you slice it or dice it, the fact is we're heading in the wrong direction. And we need to put some pressure on Trump and the administration and try to steer this ship back to a good, prosperous America First agenda. We'll be right back.
In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. In the time of censorship, non-compliance is key. From an undisclosed location in FEMA Region 10, it's your host, Joshua Michael.
All right, thanks for joining me. We had a good segue into the next topic that I want to touch on just for this short segment. I want to talk about something called taco. And no, I am not talking about the delicious, tortilla wrapped in, hamburger meat or chicken or however you like it. I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about something that's screaming through the halls of Wall Street and X and on late night comedy TV. And what was initially supposed to be kind of a criticism, has suddenly turned into a staunch reality that maybe it's not too far-fetched. And what is TACO? TACO stands for Trump Always Chickens Out. Now, this was initially the left trying to ridicule them, but there is some value to it. And let me correlate what it means, right? Financial Times guy Robert Armstrong coined it when Trump would drop some massive headline, whether it be grabbing tariff threats, Liberation Day tariffs, 50% on the EU, sky high on China, markets would panic, stocks would dip hard, oil and everything else would swing, and then a few days or weeks later, Trump would pause it, delay it, or lower the rates, or say, let's talk, or be like, well, we've gotten a peace deal. Markets, if you watch the markets would then rebound like clockwork. And we saw this the other day, I think it was about a month ago, right before Trump made his big announcement against Iran. 15 minutes before his announcement, somebody spent about $54 billion, or they made $54 billion on one trade. One single trade. I think it was maybe 54 million is what the trade was. Giant trade. 15 minutes right before he made his announcement, and they made billions on that trade. Then somebody's like, oh, that's interesting. Let's look at it again. It keeps happening. Time and time again. It happened again the following week. And it was almost exactly 15 minutes right before Trump made his big announcement. So traders started calling it taco. Buy the fear dip, sell the relief rally. Easy money if you time the flip right. Critics use this to mock him as an all bark, no bite. Trump and his team, they call it the art of the deal. So just so you know, people are making billions and billions and billions of dollars off of your gas prices going up, off of trade shortages that are going to start happening, off of just the volatility and the fear that your family has to live in, like looking at the clock of 8 o'clock, like, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? What's going to happen? So either way, the pattern's stuck and it's consistent. And in 2026, they're slapping that same taco label on the Iran situation. Let me lay this out plain for you with no spin. For example, the Strait of Hormuz deadline, Iran shuts down or mines this critical choke point. 20% of the world's oil flows through there. Prices spike, markets get jittery, Trump comes out swinging. Open it in 24 hours or we'll obliterate your energy facilities, your power plants. Multiple times he sets hard ultimatums. Markets react. Then extensions, 5 days, 10 days, constructive conversations, another push. Short-term gain, long-term, short-term pain, long-term gain. Classic setup for the rebound. Second, the big April escalation we just saw, early April. Trump ramps it up hard on Easter Sunday of all days. He warns that if the strait isn't open, Tuesday will be power plant and bridge day. Every bridge in Iran decimated, every power plant burning and exploding. He even says the entire civilization will die tonight. Tension maxed, oil shoots skyrockets. The world's watching the clock. Then about 90 minutes before 8 p.m., the Eastern deadline, he backs off, announces a 2-week ceasefire, claims we've already hit our military objectives and we're deep into a peace deal with the Iran agreeing to open the strait. Stocks and oils breathe as a sign of relief, even though Iran didn't say that. Critics immediately yell Taco Tuesday. Supporters say it's strategic. We got concessions without full-scale hell. The broader pattern here is through March and April, repeated threats on nuclear sites, energy targets, infrastructure, multiple deadline extensions. We're winning, mixed with it'll be over soon, followed by more talks and pauses, each time the rhetoric dials back. Looks familiar. The markets are picking up on this. So this taco thing cuts both ways. On tariffs or created predictable volatility, and some traders are loving it. Most people are not. So what does this mean for us? What does this mean for you? The fact of the matter is that don't believe everything you see. Don't believe your lying eyes. Just because Trump is saying things, look at what's actually happening. One of the things that sticks out to me, and somebody pointed out the other day, is really interesting, is that what was the main thing that Trump promised to the voters when he was debating Kamala Harris? If we get Kamala in office, it'll be World War III. It'll be World War III if she gets in office. She will go after Iran. She will get us into the war with Iran and everything else. That was a big deal. Was it not? Did everybody forget that? And so this comes down to having the conversation with the boomers that are like, oh, Trump's the greatest president ever. He's the greatest. He's the greatest. Yeah, he got us into a war with Iran. We are in a war with Iran. Your gas prices have gone up $1 or $2. And he's creating all this chaos around the world intentionally. It's not a reactive position. It is proactive. Now, is there a greater plan? Maybe. Absolutely. Do I trust Trump? Not at this point. I don't trust him at all. I think he's losing it. I think he's going senile. I think they're getting ready to take him out, to be honest with you. I think they're teeing up J.D. Vance to take over. By the way, yeah, so I don't remember if I ever said this on my show, but just a little side note. Excuse me. The Erica Kirk thing is that they are set to run her. They're going to run her with J.D. Vance. They're at least they're teeing up to run her as VP in 2028. And so there's remnants going around the internet that they're going to try to run her, which also explains why they're propping her up so much and pushing all this nonsense to us and trying to create a high profile for her. Be right back.
It's time to unmask the truth and expose the lies. The occupied forces do not want you to hear this broadcast. Breaking through the censorship and delivering raw, unedited content, it's Joshua Michael with Non-Compliant America.
All right, welcome back, folks. So I want to shift gears here, and I want to talk about something that I think is not talked about hardly at all. People are just either scared of it, or it's intimidating, or maybe just don't understand it or anything else, but it's correlated with chemtrails. You know, why are they still spraying us? Because that's another thing. Like, we got RFK in the White House with Trump, and he's supposed to stop the chemtrails, stop them from spraying us. Now, why are they spraying us? You know, some people speculate that they're trying to darken the sun to lessen the radiation exposure. Operation Fishbowl back in 1950s, they were blowing nuclear bombs up in the ionosphere, which then in return destroyed the hemisphere and a lot of different things. And the hemisphere protects us. It protects us from the sun and radiation exposure and all of that. And if they were blowing it up with nuclear bombs, then I would imagine that it would dissipate. And it's a very thin layer that protects us from any of the outside radiations that happen. So the theory is is that they have to geoengineer our planet because they've essentially destroyed it. And if they come out and tell everybody that they've destroyed it, therefore they have to supplement these ionization aluminum oxide sprays that they're spraying on us, which is poisoning our land, it's poisoning our crops, it's poisoning our bodies, it's causing people to go crazy, it's making us live less, it's drastically infecting our bodies with toxic chemicals all day, every day. But if we don't do that, then we're just going to die of radiation. I could understand that argument if they were to ever come out and actually say that. But what else is happening beyond that is the magnetism and the magnetic fields around the planet. And so you see, we were talking earlier in the last segment about everybody's frantic, everybody's going crazy, everybody's, all these countries are just acting very erratic right now. And a lot of people think that they're just preparing for nuclear disaster. But if you follow some of the elites, they're not afraid of a nuclear disaster. They're afraid of a geophysical event, like in the times of Noah that we read about, which has to do with the weakening of the Earth's magnetic field. The magnetic poles are shifting, and Earth's magnetic field is weakening at the same time. If you want to know what the Earth would look like without a magnetic field, take a look at Mars. Magnetic fields protect the Earth from solar flares and other space dangers. Here's the problem. Earth's magnetic field is weakening 10 times faster now at the current moment. We're losing about 5% of our magnetic field every 10 years. In the early 2000s, scientists said we have lost 10% of the total field. The last time they brought this up was back in 2010. They said it jumped to 15%. So in the past 10 years, from 2000 to 2010, it had jumped to 15%. Scientists are presuming that it's currently at around 25%, which means Earth only has 75% of its strength left in the tank. And this will lead to higher levels of radiation in our atmosphere. Not just that. Now, here's where it gets a bit crazy. This is a published peer-reviewed model that run of the solar superflare during that magnetic pole shift, what it would look like. And I can show the map. I'll post that map on my X. But basically, everyone in the yellow would eventually die from radiation, which is a astronomically amount of surface area around the Earth. So if you're in the yellow spot, you're cooked. And if you know what the country looks mighty safe, Greenland, coincidentally, falls into that same as a safe zone as far as this map, because we're all wondering, like, why were we in Greenland? But Greenland potentially is in that safe spot. Oregon and Washington actually are as well, and Texas. But there are a couple safe spots in America. Now scientists believe that the people who decide to stay in these zones, it will riddle most people with cancer. If this information was announced, people would overfill and flock the safe zones, making it harder for the rich and elite to buy up the cheap land and build their underground bunkers. Jeff Bezos owns over 400,000 acres in Texas. Texas is a safe spot. Bill Gates recently acquired 28,000 acres in Arizona and also 20,000 acres in Nebraska, everywhere that you see yellow on this map. Yes, people will become sick, but crops won't be able to thrive with all the radiation. They're following Edgar Cayce. He's the famous sleeping prophet. He predicted the pulse shift even before it was scientifically measured. He said the pulse would shift and become apparent starting in about 1958, and he said that it would be acknowledged in 2000 and 2001. Well, in 1958, the South Atlantic anomaly was discovered. That was the weak spot on the Earth's magnetic field that is steadily growing and is now starting to split into two separate cells currently. And the North magnetic field is shifting at a speed of 32 to 50 kilometers per year. The shift rate began accelerating in around 1995 to 2000, which also aligns with its predictions. Now here's the map he created of the USA after the pole shift. It looks very similar to the map I just showed you. They're buying right into the spots that Edgar said would be safe. Very, very interesting. So what does this have to do with the geoengineering and things like that? When we look back on the geoengineering of the Earth's atmosphere and the protections potentially from radiation, I could see the argument of why the U.S. government and the Department of Defense are actively spraying us. Now, if it was a tinfoil hat conspiracy, there wouldn't be states out there like Texas or Florida banning the use of this geoengineering and chemtrails. But the other thing that I thought was interesting that just popped up also, a U.S. Air Force environmental engineer, Christine Drazan, caught the military shipping massive quantities of aluminum, barium, strontium to be mixed into jet fuel. And that's what that is. That's what those chemtrails are. And it's not needed to be into jet fuel. But take a listen to this report.
One of the first people to ever blow the whistle on what she says is absolutely happening, and that our own government has been involved for decades, spraying chemicals into the air with no regard for the people those chemicals could be hurting. I want to welcome in former U.S. Air Force environmental specialist and geoengineering whistleblower, Christine Drazan. It's great to have you back, Kristen. Appreciate you being here. So you've been talking about this issue for years now. Can you take us through what you say is absolutely happening?
Yeah, thanks for having me back. This is absolutely happening, and it's basically now openly admitted, even though you're getting kind of pushback from the EPA, but I don't think it's intentional. What I discovered around starting in 2007, I was working in bioenvironmental engineering in the Air Force. And like I had mentioned previously, I tried to debunk this. And in the attempt to debunk it, I realized, as somebody who was approving forms called Air Force Form 3952s, I had to reject these toxicants on formerly known as an MSDS, now an SDS, because they're the very same toxicants we were trying to engineer out of the workplace. So why would we be procuring more? So lots of soil sampling, air sampling. Once I got threatened, I knew I found something, and it's very much happening. In fact, when I finished my master's around 2015, it was in one of my environmental textbooks that they were doing it. So it's a shock to me that people still think it's not happening. Yes, yeah. I sold the book, but I wish I still had it.
And we can all see it if you look up, and it just doesn't make sense, that it's coming from like a Delta flight flying overhead. So your role in the Air Force, if I'm understanding it correctly, was basically to approve these flights long before takeoff, and eventually you just said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. Is that accurate broadly?
Well, it wasn't approving the flights. So when you're using hazardous materials, you have to track them from cradle to grave, use and disposal. So when I was in the Air Force, I'm basically OSHA and EPA, but in the military. So I had to make sure that we were keeping workers safe. So we had to understand what we were bringing on and how could it affect human and environmental health.
Right. People will say to me, they're like, well, we don't think this is happening. If this isn't happening, why have multiple states passed laws banning weather engineering, including Florida, including Texas? Can you explain that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I know a lot of people have taken the angle of, because people still don't believe it. Even if you don't believe it, there's people that are trying to take action saying, look at what they're claiming. Because when the government claims that they're going to do something, they're already doing it. And they're trying to say, even if you don't believe it, would you want it to happen? It has these human and environmental impacts. So, yes, and there's a lot of those legislators have reached out to myself and Dane Wigington over the past couple of years. So they have the information and all the government documents that are on geoengineeringwatch.org.
Biggest question, in your opinion, why is this being done? And again, it might not be EPA, could be DARPA, could be War Department, could be private companies, but why are they doing this?
I think there's a multitude of reasonings. You control the weather, you can handicap many people. We did it flooding the Ho Chi Minh Trail. But when you had this huge climate change initiative, we needed to find ways to dim the sun and decrease the solar load. So this is fear-based, and I also think it's financially incentivized through betting on crops and, again, handicapping anyone in war.
Yeah, so it kind of takes
there
away.
You go. So now she's talking about and opening up a whole nother Pandora's box of weather weapons. And so has the U.S. government, has other governments across the world be manipulating the Earth's atmosphere to benefit weather weapons. And we can see it. We can watch them shoot this stuff across our skies right here in Oregon. And the next day, it starts raining. The next day, it's cloudy. The next day, we lose the sun. And we need rain. We need snow. Don't get me wrong. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, folks. Joshua Michael, Non-Compliant America. Thank you very much for joining me on this last segment. Beautiful day of Saturday, April 18th, and we've been getting into a lot of topics. I'll talk. I don't really want to talk about Oregon politics or anything else. I want to talk about more cultural things and other things that I think that are very important for you to know and to get prepared for what's to come. I do think that we are in a time of the fourth turning. The Great Awakening is happening. People are more inclined and more susceptible to listen to this information and be able to absorb it and take it as a more consideration rather than just being dismissive and calling it a conspiracy theory. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy theories that have come true. There's a lot of things that people have been whistleblowing. They've either mysteriously died or they get disenfranchised or and put into a box of being a lunatic. But we have to keep and maintain our discernment and ability to be able to sift through information and decide what we believe is real and what we believe is not. If we have given our entire power over to a group of people or people for that matter, and to let them control and run our lives, well, we simply will get that. We simply will have a life of no control. We simply will live in this globalist utopia where you're put into a 10 by 10 concentration camp style-esque future where you have no rights, you have no ability to operate. The big American dream that we've all been sold suddenly goes away. And that's why I have these conversations, whether they're hard conversations, whether you think I'm crazy or anything else. I feel in my heart that it's very important to relay this information to you and inspire thought. At the very least, if I could get you thinking about these things and considering them and maybe even divulging in them and exploring the idea that the American system that we live in does not have your best interest for you, for your kids, for your family, for your dogs, for your estate planning, your financial securities, anything and everything that you've done. For the most part, they've maneuvered you into being able to take it away at any point. And that does include your children. And we see that with CPS and their overreach. I know people that have gotten their family ripped from them off of an accusation that 2 years later, after fighting and spending tens of thousands of dollars in court, where their kids were taken away from them over an accusation that actually ended up being unfounded. That's insane. And so they rob their kids of their time completely. Never get it back. Never get it back. And, nobody's the wiser. Oh, there must be something factual about it. There must be something true about it. We need to believe everybody. We need to believe it all, and then get the state involved. Like, they're going to do a great job handling it. The state is the last place that you want to get involved. The government is the last thing you want to trust. And that's the basis of the American system on how it's supposed to be running. We have to be able to redress our grievances and hold the government accountable on all accounts. On all accounts. We don't give them blanket oversight to be able to manage our lives. And if you get that, you're going to end up in one of these concentration camps called FEMA camps in the near future, and or they're just going to kill you. And the hospitals will be overran. You won't be able to get any medical care because it'll be broken because all the illegals override the emergency system, which the hospitals don't care because they're getting government subsidies. They love it. They're expanding. I feel like the hospitals, especially around here, the Salem Hospital, they are expanding everywhere. They're buying up land, buying property, creating new agencies, new departments. They're just having a heyday. They are making billions with a B on all this stuff. Guaranteed. So they wouldn't want that to go away. The homeless population, the hospital have an interest in the homeless population because the homeless people, that's where they go to. But when you, as a tax-paying American that has a job, and you believe and trust in that system that's going to be there when you need it, who knows? It might not be there by the time you need it. And the best example I can give all of you, which you all have right in the back of your mind, and it's so fresh, is COVID. COVID was a prime example of how quickly that rug, that false sense of security that you have, will be ripped out from under you. How quickly, overnight, suddenly your best friend that you've grew up with, that you knew your entire life, is telling you, you can't come over to my house unless you have a COVID vaccine. Well, what about our 30 years of friendship? What about this? What about our kids? Can our kids not play? No, our kids can't play. You can't come see your grandson unless you have a COVID vaccine. I know a guy. He got the COVID vaccine so he could go see his grandson because his son was such a lunatic that he set those parameters, set those measures. Can't go shop at Costco. You can't go into these restaurants. You can't do. We all know exactly how quickly things can get overturned. They'll silence you, deplatform you. They'll call you a misinformation con artist. They'll call you a radical terrorist. They'll call you whatever they want. The media, your friends, everybody. People at the hospital. Taken my son to the hospital before, and they, everything's going good. It's going great. He's got a little cough or whatever, or maybe a small fever, and it's been going on for a couple days. And then they're like, oh, yeah. And then, boom, here comes the question. Has he been vaccinated? Is he up to date on his vaccines? Of course he is. Of course. When the answer is no, absolutely not. I'm not letting anybody put that crap into my son. When he's 18 years old, if he wants to do that, he can absolutely do that. And I think it's wrong. I think it's poison. I think we've seen it. You can look at the data. The data is extraordinary. If you've been following what RFK has posted about the data, it's like 5, 6, 10 times more likely to have all these crazy diseases if your child has been vaccinated. That's not me saying that. That's the actual facts with real data. Then if you look at the other data that the vaccine manufacturers are pushing, they've never done a double-blind study on anything that they're producing. It's kind of like cell phone companies. Cell phone companies don't put out that your cell phone causes radiation and makes you sick and is slowly killing you and creating radicals within your body, which then cause cancer. They're not going to tell you that. They can't tell you that. They do deep into your cell phone. They do have a disclaimer where they have to tell you about RF exposure. And you're actually not supposed to have your phone next to you. You're not supposed to have it in your pocket. You're not supposed to even put it up to your ear. Did you know that? Bet you didn't. Probably not. Maybe you did. Maybe that sounds crazy to some of you. But the facts of the matter are real. It's there. It's like a small microwave. Then you have 15-year-old girls that have a pocket in their bra where they put their cell phone, suddenly develop breast cancer right in that very pocket at 15 years old. Do you think there's a correlation? Absolutely. So when you chalk all this stuff up as being absolutely crazy and radical and extreme and everything else, this is the reality, and it's not fun. It is a little bit scary, but if you take the measures to educate yourself and turn off the sports games and don't get fallen into, all the betting programs or whatever vice that you have to try to disconnect, those are good times to invest into this stuff, and you'll know more about it than I do. I don't have time to digest everything. I'm just trying to give you slow drips, but the ultimate goal of this entire show is to try to wake everybody up, And we can't confide within these leaders to do that job for us. We have to take control of our own lives to protect ourselves and our families. Thanks for listening. Joshua Michael, Non-Compliant America. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you soon.